coming back to school with me. We could have done it all so easily.
Hi, my name is Craig Thompson-Wood. I'm the board game teacher. Thanks for coming to my games room. Today we're going to take a look at Memoir 44 by Days of Wonder. So looking at the report card for Memoir 44, I give the number of players a C to a B. And that's because in the base game itself, Memoir 44 is really a two-player game. And to me, that's like a C. I mean, a game which is only going to accommodate small numbers like that is not the ideal. Large numbers of people, ability to accommodate large groups in the classroom is really the ideal, but up to a B because this game can be combined. So if you had two copies of this, or if you had one copy and somebody else had another copy, you can combine this into another version of this game called Memoir 44 Overlord. And in that you then have two teams of three people on either side and then one general behind them. And it makes for a really interesting game. I've only seen it played by other people on YouTube. I've never actually done it myself, but would be something I'd definitely be interested to try someday. For learning, I'm going to give this game a B+. I think this game is exceptional in what it does in the teaching of history. You're looking, in this game, what you're doing is you are recreating battles from World War II, where you're using infantry, tanks, artillery in such places like Omaha Beach, Pegasus Bridge, and you are recreating the scenario by not only the troops that were there at the time, but also the terrain that was there. So where history buffs may know a lot of the dates and the facts and the numbers, to actually see the landscape laid out before you, you had these cliffs here, you had these villages here, you had these beaches here, it just makes it more evocative and immersive of that experience to really get a feel for the history of this event. And not only that, but there are snippets of information. They include the history of the battle in the scenario book itself. So, for example, in one of them, they're talking about the fact that the Axis was at a disadvantage because during this battle, Rommel himself was actually on vacation and not there leading the troops, and that gave them a bit of a setback. So these kinds of things are fun things to learn and sort of take you deeper than just the straight numbers and the facts and the dates of these events that had happened, giving you more of a sense of what was going on behind the scenes and things, and then to actually experience it through playing the game to recreate the battle. For fun, I'm going to give this game a B+. This game implements something what's called the Commands and Colors system, because Commands and Colors was the first game that had implemented this style of game where the battlefield is divided into three sections: your left flank, your center, and your right flank. And as the troops and the tanks and things are on different parts of the board, you are wanting to give them orders. But you will have cards which tell you which sides of the board you can give orders to. So in your hand of 5 cards, you may be able to give a lot of orders to your center and to your right flank, but you desperately maybe want to move some tanks on your left flank, but you're just not getting those cards to move anything on your left flank. And it just sort of represents this whole chaos of the battlefield and things, and you're trying to get orders to people, but they're just not reaching them, and it's not all reliable, and it's an interesting style of game, and it's a lot of fun. Plus, which is just, to me personally, I find it fun to, as I say, to learn the history in this way, and is to recreate these battles. It brings in a certain sense of fun and enjoyment in and of itself. For time, I'm going to give the game a B. The game says it plays between 30 to 60 minutes, which is, a good time for a class period if you were going to do that kind of thing within your class, or maybe during a lunch break or something, or before or after school. However you're looking at doing it, it's not something like, Axis and Allies, which is going to take hours and hours. This game can be done quickly. If you're going to implement this one in your class, I would definitely recommend setting it up beforehand, because the 30 to 60 minutes is for the playtime only. The setting up could take a little bit of time, because finding the right terrain pieces, noting where they are, setting up the troops, putting them in the proper places. You want to make sure that you're not taking up half of your period setting up the board, not leaving yourself enough time to play. For cost, I'm going to give this one a C. I looked it up and it's going to run you about $76.50 Canadian, which is pretty pricey as far as board games go. But you do get a lot in the game. There's a lot of plastic miniatures, there's the boards, all the terrain pieces, plus a lot of scenarios. What's nice about this game too is like if it has lots and lots and lots of expansions for different battles in different parts, such as there's ones with the Russian front and all kinds of expansions that you could be looking to get your hands on if this is the kind of thing that you'd be interested in using. So there's a lot to it, but getting into it in the first place could be a little bit pricey. Well, let's get this game to the table and let me show you how this plays. Operation Cobra was predicated on the saturation bombing of German lines over a narrow front. After the bombing, an attack would be made by 3 infantry divisions with 2 armored and 1 infantry division held in reserve of this breakout force. General Bradley's intention in Cobra was to get the U.S. forces out of hedgerow hell and into the uplands further south where they would be able to maneuver. The ground attack began at 11 o'clock with the simple objective of seizing Marigny and Saint-Gilles. In the center, the bombing quickly put the old Panzer Lehr division out of action, but the western portion of the attack bogged down quickly against German defensive positions of the 13th Parachute Regiment, who had escaped most of the bombing. Around the town of Hebecrevant, Panther tanks and German infantry were also putting up a strong fight. As a result, first-day gains were disappointing. The options of Lightning Joe Collins, commander of the U.S. forces, were to continue the infantry attacks in hope of securing a clean breakthrough, or act more boldly and commit the mechanized forces held in reserves the next day. Never a timid man, he opted for the latter. By late afternoon, the 3rd Armored Division was on the outskirts of Marigny, and the 2nd Armored Division was moving rapidly towards Saint-Gilles. An attempted counter-attack by Kampfgruppe Heinz and the remnants of Panzer Lehr could not stop the armored advance. The U.S. forces had achieved their breakout. The stage is set, the battle lines are drawn, and you are in command. The rest is history.
He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored.
And here we are all set up now for Operation Cobra. It's the 8th mission in the scenario book in the back, and it tells me that this mission took place on July 25th and July 26th, 1944. So here we have the Allied forces, U.S. forces, coming up into this area here, which was told in the introduction as hedgerow hell. We have the German forces trying to stop their advance. Now the game itself is relatively simple once you know how to play. You're going to use these command cards, which I'd talked about earlier, and these command cards are going to give you particular orders that you can play. So for example, if I just take 5 command cards here, 3, 4, 5, I have here probe, where I can order 2 of my units and they are on the right flank. So if I'm the Allied player, it's my right flank, but if I'm the Axis player, looking at it from this perspective, it's also my right flank. So my right flank is shown here where the red dotted line goes down the sides of the board, my right flank, my center, my left flank. So if I was going to do this one here, this probe on the right, I could move 2 units. So I could move the tank unit and the infantry, or I could also move this 2nd infantry here because they are straddling this line, so they can be activated either as the right flank or as the middle, the center. So here I have more probing on the right, 3 in the center, and sometimes you get special cards like an artillery bombard. Now, even in this mission, you don't have any artillery on either side. There are pieces for the artillery which just weren't included in the mission. The artillery pieces look something like this. So now this one, it is only for artillery only, giving them some benefits, but it says if you do not command any artillery units, you can order 1 unit of your choice. So every card's going to have something you can do. This one's just better if you use it when you do have artillery. And there's going to be a number of different cards in here. Sometimes you can do like a pincer maneuver where you're going on both flanks, or maybe center and right or center and left. It's going to be all kinds of different things. And the game is simply going to be a case of, so if you're moving these tanks, then you are going to activate them. Now tanks can move forward 2, and they can battle. So the tanks can move forward up here and then battle here. Now they can also shoot at a distance, and that is shown here on this card, which you will use during the game. And it shows that they can attack from distances of 3 up to 3 spaces away, and no matter how far they're attacking from, it's always going to be 3 dice. So really there's no point for the tanks to even move. They can even just stay back here and fire on the troops down here. When you attack, it says they on every space they have 3s. So 3, 3, 3 for all those 3 spaces. So that means that they would roll 3 of these dice. A star is considered a miss. Pictures of infantrymen will kill infantrymen. So that means with 2, 2 are gone. This last one with the star is a miss, so this last person is surviving. If they had rolled a grenade, that would have also killed an infantryman. And if they had done that, they had wiped out a unit, the Axis can then take one of these tokens, which is double-sided for both sides of the battle. They can take this Axis token, they can put it here, and the first person to reach 5 medals, as stated in the mission booklet, will be the winner. On this dice, you also have tanks for killing tanks, and flags, which can cause retreats. Retreats would happen if this unit were forced to retreat. They would have to retreat away from the tanks, but in this case, they had nowhere they can go because they're blocked by the other units. Therefore, every dice that they would have to retreat by, that they're unable to accomplish, would result in 1 wound. Some forces, like these German tanks up here, may have a token on them to show that they are special forces. So this is a Panzer Elite unit, and they are described in the rule book as having 4 tanks in their unit as opposed to the regular 3. Sometimes you may also have special objectives, like these 2 towns here, which were the ones that the U.S. forces were looking to liberate. If the U.S. forces are able to grab these, they are worth 2 bonus victory points, helping them to reach their victory that much quicker. For things such as the terrain, there is forests, hedgerows, towns, rivers, bridges, certain large manner of different things. All of those can be found on these different cards, which I'll leave for you to discover for yourself. Players take it in turn, back and forth, playing a card, activating their troops, rolling the dice, and then back to the other side. Once both sides have played 1 card, then they each draw up new cards, and the new turn begins. Play continues until one person has reached the required amount of victory medals. And that, in a nutshell, is Memoir 44. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you have any questions about Memoir 44, or maybe you have some suggestions for other historical games or war games that you might like to see me do on the channel, please leave me a message in the comments section below. But until next time, I'm Craig Thompson-Wood, the board game teacher, saying thanks for coming to the classroom.
Are you coming back to school with me? We could have done it all.